Are you ready to take your design career to the next level and make a bigger impact? Becoming a business-aware designer is one key to success. By understanding the language and the tactics of business, you'll communicate your ideas and be more involved in strategic decisions. Stick around and I'll show you 5 ways to become a business-aware designer. Let's go. Hey, I'm Parvin. I'm a digital product designer from London, and I teach people how to get better at design. If you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. The popularity of design thinking and the success of design-led companies like Airbnb have made it clear that design is no longer something which gets seen as an afterthought. So many companies are turning to using processes and paradigms that traditionally belong to the design world in order to solve problems and gain an edge over their competitors. So the business world is using strategies from the design world to grow companies, increase profits, and continually innovate. How can we as designers do the same? How can we make more of an impact in the companies that we work in? Well, the key, I think, is to become a business-aware designer. Brian Rumsey, in a book for Envision's Design Better series, asserts that the most successful designers are the ones who are the most business-aware. By understanding the language and the tactics of business, you can become more involved in strategic decisions and therefore have a bigger impact. As Alan Faljic from DMBA points out, becoming fluent in business language will make it easier to convince non-designers into user-centric ideas. So, how do we do it? Well, here are 5 ways to become a business-aware designer. Number 1, consider your profit model. All companies exist to make money. That's the bottom line. Complain about it if you want, but capitalism is the reality of modern society, and it's something which is here to stay. Over the course of a year, the company makes money by making more profit. Profit is a simple function of revenue and cost. It's equal to the total revenue earned minus total cost spent. There may be one sole revenue stream or multiple revenue streams. And for a company that makes money by selling a single individual product, revenue is simply the quantity of that item which has been sold multiplied by how much each one sells for. Now, costs are usually broken down into fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs are the same no matter how much the company sells, whereas variable costs vary based on how much is sold amongst other factors. Working out what the cost revenue model is of the company you're working at is a really great way to start thinking about how design decisions affect the core business model. You can do this for the entire company, or you can just do this for a branch of the company, or even just for the one product or service that you are working on. And this doesn't need to be some big fancy diagram or spreadsheet. Even scribbling out what that profit model is on the back of a post-it note is valuable. The reason for working out this profit model is simple. As a designer, every design decision you make should eventually lead to an increase in profit, either by increasing the revenue or by decreasing the costs. Now, startups have a different business model where profit isn't the focus, and it's worth pointing that out because many design-oriented companies are startups or will have a startup mindset, which means they may not be as revenue-driven as a traditional company. Generally speaking, most startups are focused on increasing growth. They're working on the basis that they'll figure out their revenue model later on, once they've got a critical mass of users. For companies like these, where they've got a growth focus rather than a profit focus, it's probably most important to focus on user acquisition rather than focusing on increasing revenue or cutting costs. So if you're working at a company like this, my earlier advice is slightly different. Instead, every design decision you make should eventually lead to an increase in number of users. Number 2, be mindful of competitors. Now, completing a piece of competitor analysis isn't just something limited to the business world. I've worked on loads of projects with clients where we usually start with the competitor analysis exercise, which involves researching direct and indirect competitors and seeing how they present information, how their app or website looks, and then also looking at wider visual trends, popular features, maybe new platform changes, like what's happening in the latest version of iOS. But it's also worth being aware of what it means to analyze competitors from a business perspective, as well as from this design perspective. The main text on this is Michael Porter's 1985 book, Competitive Advantage: Creating and Sustaining Superior Performance, which outlines 3 general strategies a business can use to find their competitive advantage in their industry. This can be applied to products and services in all industries and to organizations of all sizes. The 3 strategies are cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Now, in the description of this video, I've left a link to a detailed breakdown from Mind Tools about what each of these mean. In summary, the first strategy is to become a cost leader, which means reducing your company's costs to get an edge over other competitors. This can either be done by reducing the cost of your products to gain more sales, or by reducing other costs and maintaining industry average prices. But this requires more than just setting prices lower. It requires an investment in technology and logistics so that costs can sustainably stay lower than those of competitors. The second is to create differentiation. Your company's product should stand out from the products of your competitors, which makes them seem more attractive in the eyes of the consumer. The third strategy is to focus on a niche customer base. Understanding the specific market and customers you have allows your company to create unique, fit-for-purpose products for that market. Now, a focus strategy is not really enough on its own to stand out, so it's still important to work out whether your company is pursuing a cost leadership or a differentiating strategy as well. The third way to become a business-aware designer is to make use of business tools and frameworks. Now, as UX designers, we love a canvas or a map as a way to organize our thinking. So it's worth taking a look at tools that will feel familiar to us, but have more of a business focus to them. There are loads of resources like this out there, but my favorite one is the Lean Startup Canvas. This was made by Ash Moria and is specifically for early stage companies that have really lean processes. This is useful because it really helps us to lay out an entire company on a page. It helps you work through sections saying what the problem you're solving is, how it's solving it in a unique way, what the competitive edge is, what channels are used to reach customers, what the revenue streams and associated costs are, and even more. So it's a really great tool, which I recommend you checking out and working through for the business you work at. Number 4 is to communicate with metrics. Now, data is something hugely important for designers, but more than that, it's the language of the business world. And it all comes down to this. If you can't measure something, you can't improve it. Kerry Rodden from Google Ventures advocates design which is data informed rather than data driven. This means the data doesn't take over. Instead, it just serves to inform the design process. Again, in the description, I'll link to an article of Kerry's which shows how to use Google's Heart framework to identify goals and signals and then metrics which are relevant to your product. The Heart framework encourages you to measure adoption and retention as well as unique users, which means you can explicitly distinguish new users from returning users and therefore tell how your user base is growing or stabilizing. This is super useful for new products and features or for features which are undergoing redesigns. And it's important to think about data and metrics both from a business mindset as well as from a design mindset. So if we think back to the first point about working out a company's profit model, you might think how the metrics you've chosen to track align with the company's overall goals, which is either increasing profit or increasing growth. By framing metrics in these business terms, you'll get more buy-in. Your design activities will therefore not only help improve the user's experience, but it will also help the business perform better. Now, if you're new to working with metrics and this all feels overwhelming, don't worry about tracking loads of things at the same time. Instead, start by just picking one thing to focus on. This is what's called a North Star metric. A North Star metric is a single indicator which measures what success is for your company. It could be the number of referrals, the number of conversions, the number of matches, the time spent on the app. It's just whatever makes sense for your company. The fifth way to become a business-aware designer is to talk the talk. It's important to know business vocabulary and be able to use it confidently. To get better at doing this, I recommend starting to read business blogs or financial articles, maybe checking out the money or the business section of your favorite newspaper. Now, this isn't something you should just go and study. It's not like rote learning vocab for a French test, but instead it's just something to be aware of. Whenever you read a word or a phrase from the business world and you don't know what it means, if you write down that definition, it's a great way to keep it cemented in your brain. Now that you've got a better understanding of what it means to be a business-aware designer, it's time to put these strategies into practice. By becoming a business-aware designer, you'll be able to make a bigger impact in your company and communicate your ideas more effectively to people throughout the business. Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything you think I've missed, please drop a comment below and let me know how you'd become a better business-aware designer. Before I go, I just want to say, if you like this video, please do hit the like button below. It really helps me out. And while you're there, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. All the best. Talk to you soon, hopefully. Cheers.